Without a doubt, The Walking Dead is my favourite television show. Probably always will be. It was like no other zombie media we'd seen at the time, and probably will never be done again. It wasn't all about the dead being resurrected and human survival. It explored the moral choices the characters make, as well as their own moral complexities, in which at times they had us guessing if our own protagonists were even on the right side morally. It really delved into the human nature of this world. This is what predominantly made the show so special, and what made it stand out from the massively oversaturated genre in the late 2000s and early 2010s. However, for me, the show peaked between seasons 1 to 5. In the later seasons, I felt like it was losing its magic. By seasons 8 to 11, it was literally a hollow shell of what it used to be. However, this is just my opinion. If you want to see where I felt The Walking Dead should have concluded, check out this video I made discussing it. However, there was an episode in season 6 where I saw The Walking Dead rise again, back to its peak. Then, by the end of the episode, I saw it fall from grace again. That would be the finale episode, titled Last Day on Earth. It's been 10 years since this episode aired, and I've noticed since the episode came to streaming services, it has been heavily re-evaluated. So let's dive into one of the most controversial Walking Dead episodes that was also its best, worst and most horrifying. It's been 10 years, but just in case, this video will contain spoilers for Season 6 Episode 16 and Season 7 Episode 1 and Seasons 1 and 3. I highly recommend watching these episodes and all seasons first, then returning to this video for maximum enjoyment. Now Rick is still feeling happy with himself after clearing out the Saviours, and at this point I feel like he feels like he and his group are untouchable. I got that vibe a lot this season, that he was getting ever so slightly egotistical, and who can blame him? Every group that has challenged Rick, he has overcome them, so wiping out the Saviours was just like any other. But little did he know that was just an outpost. This whole episode is pretty much a reminder to Rick that no matter how strong you think you are, there will always be someone who will come along and put you on your arse. And today was that day for Rick. It's also his wake-up call from Jenna at the CDC. The day has come that he won't be thankful for being spared from the explosion. He has finally seen what people are capable of. Now the boot is on the other foot. Now the premise of this episode, with Rick, is of course taking an unwell Maggie to the hilltop so she can seek medical attention from their doctor. This is what I'll be predominantly focusing on, because let's face it, it's the juiciest part, because the other half of the episode is Morgan being, well, Morgan, and Carol randomly falling from grace, going from literally becoming John Wick then to a depressed Mary Poppins. So with that, backing up what I just aforementioned, Rick seems pretty comfortable taking Maggie by himself in the RV, probably the slowest moving vehicle on the fleet and the least economical. Although he doesn't put up much of a fight to Abraham, Sasha, Eugene and Aaron tagging along. Rick knows there still might be some straggler saviours out there. I don't think he's that completely blinkered, but he is still fine with them risking their lives. However, his speech to Maggie on the journey again brings up my point with him truly believing the group can accomplish anything.
Hey.
How'd you know?
Everything we've done together. We got here together and we're still here. Things have happened, but it's always worked out for us because it's always been all of us. That's how I know. Because as long as it's all of us, we can do anything.
And straight away, that is put to the test when they arrive at their first
of many.
Yes, all right, yes.
roadblock. I'm happy but also sad that Abraham was on this journey. We got some of his best one-liners this episode.
What the bitch? Bitch nuts.
They would indicate they not only have people, but some big-ass toys and capabilities.
What it indicates is we are neck deep up shit creek with our mouths wide open.
This episode has some great show, don't tell exposition. At the roadblock, Rick has his first encounter with Simon, portrayed by the brilliant Stephen Ogg. Of course, Rick and his ego sees right through Simon's greater plan, and he just shrugs this off. There's some small breakaway group taking care of some business, and they've just stumbled across it. Rick thinks they can just turn around and go another way. He doesn't pick up on any of Simon's hints that this is a complete setup from the start. Rick even has the audacity to attempt to threaten them for their stuff. Looking back at this now, I see how deluded Rick is. He really had no idea. This whole episode is just one giant game of cat and mouse, and that's what makes it so unique. We hadn't seen anything like this in the show, but it also felt like a return to form. After planning a detour and hitting the road again, Sasha and Abraham have a quiet moment discussing their future and perhaps someday starting their own family, which for me foreshadowed his fate. I thought straight away, even back in 2016 when this aired, with Simon's hints at someone's last day on Earth, and we knew Negan at this point had been cast. It was pretty obvious Abraham looks like a soldier, a right-hand man. It was obvious Negan would choose him. It's a very bittersweet scene now watching it back, again showing how well crafted the exposition was in this episode. The show also does a fantastic job of setting the atmosphere in these scenes, especially with the high aperture, letting low light into the frame, and the low saturated colour grading. The supporting characters don't seem phased yet, but for us viewers, literally looking in from the outside, we can feel something brewing, and it's not just a cup of tea, it's another roadblock. But still, none of them seem bothered. Rick just reassures them that they can outsmart the Saviors. But as they turn around, Abraham addresses the elephant in the room. They've got numbers. It's starting to dawn on Rick that he might have made a mistake, but he hides it by stating they just need to get Maggie to the hilltop. But again, they are stopped. The Saviors are taunting Rick at every stop. This one in particular hits home to Rick. It's a roadblock of walkers. But not just any walkers. Two are cosplaying as Daryl and Michonne. Yes, the Saviors have them. But this is Rick's oh shit moment. They have his partner and his brother. Talk about being between a rock and a hard place. Worst of all, when the Saviors scare them back to the RV, Rick almost loses his hatchet. God forbid. In all seriousness though, it's again just driving home to Rick that he no longer has the upper hand. He must know by now that he is being led into a greater trap, and there is nothing he can do about it. And potentially his romantic interest and brother could be dead because of his actions at the satellite outpost. I forgot to mention as well how strong Eugene was in this episode. I'm amazed that he went on the journey in the first place and actually stepped out of the RV at most of the roadblocks. Back on the road, Rick states what I just aforementioned. It's obvious the Saviors want them to be guided to an endpoint, regardless of what routes Sasha and Eugene pick. The Saviors have every route covered. They know they're going to the hilltop. I'm surprised none of the characters worked that out. They knew the Saviors had control over the hilltop. Hence why they were asked by Jesus to clear out the satellite outpost. Maybe one small flaw in the writing on the episode there. And then of course, Aaron has to break the news that Maggie's condition is worsening. Coincidence? Well, yes, but it adds to the tension and Rick's stress levels. A stressed Rick Grimes always brings out the best moments in The Walking Dead. Andrew Lincoln's performances are always top tier when he has to portray a stressed or perturbed Rick. It's a masterclass and is always an interesting watch. I just love analysing what he does on screen. With each roadblock, the Saviours are flexing more numbers and more of what they can really do, proving not only do they have the numbers, but the resources to do this for as long as it takes. Rick really has no choice but to keep playing their game. They probably barely have enough fuel to go back to Alexandria, and they don't have a doctor anyway, because of, well, you know. And he can't let Maggie's condition continue to worsen, so he has no choice but to see how far he can get to Hilltop and hope that this run-in with Negan won't be for too long, and with no casualties. As good as an idea Eugene had about going on foot, it was obvious to the Saviours that they would go this route. They can't turn back and desperately need to get to the hilltop, and I would certainly imagine they would have scouts watching them, but they go for it anyway. And another shout out to Eugene for sacrificing himself for being a decoy in the RV. He was also heading into the unknown. This was a massive change for his character. He even knew it might be a one-way trip, but I'm glad he got to say his goodbyes to Abraham. Perhaps another foreshadow? But as expected, the Saviours close in with their now infamous whistle, and we finally get to the juiciest part of the episode. We've never seen the group like this before, this helpless, and worst of all, knowing that no one is coming to help. I'll always remember my stomach dropping when I first saw the lights coming on and the camera panning away upwards, revealing just how many saviours there were. The choice to film this scene with only headlights from the vehicles, paired with a cold foggy night, was a perfect choice. From what I can remember, this episode aired in October, so it felt right for spooky season. The writer's plan of setup and payoff worked. It's all been building up to this moment to create a spectacle that will be remembered for all the right and wrong reasons. I love Stephen Ogg's performance in this scene too. Simon is so relaxed and has a pleasant persona to the group, like they've just arrived at his house for a cuppa. He's glad they finally got to where they're going. I'm hoping Rick finally understands his hints from earlier in the episode, but instantly he flips into a more assertive stance. Almost a good cop, bad cop routine. That's the vibe I was getting. When the group were all kneeling down, I was really as scared as the group. I was shaking. I knew there was no way out. One or two members of our group, some we had spent 6 years with at this point, would be having their last day on Earth. The abundance of body language experts here on YouTube would be having a field day with Rick in this scene. He is literally broken. We haven't seen him this broken since losing Laurie in season 3. From my analysis, I can obviously see he is scared, broken, but also angry, frustrated. But most importantly, he knows that John Wick Carroll isn't coming to save his arse, as he can literally do nothing but watch and listen. It's grade A acting at its finest. Did he ever win an award for this performance? But what stole this scene for me was the reveal of Negan. I've always hated myself for saying it, even when I first watched this episode. But I liked Negan right from the start. I loved Jeffrey Dean Morgan's portrayal. I loved his actions, the charisma, the swagger, the now iconic lean. Yes, he may have come across cartoonish, but that's the point. He's built an empire, and clearly a well-oiled army. He can act however he damn well pleases. Who's going to stop him? His monologue was just outstanding, and still lives rent-free in my head. And when I was listening to his monologue, it hit me. Negan was pushed into setting this up. Rick attacked his people unprovoked. He had to retaliate and show some force. For once in the series, it flips the script and portrays Rick and his group as the antagonists. It was giving me vibes of the Last of Us franchise, in which the narrative is that no one is truly evil. If we followed this journey in Negan's shoes, we would 100% be seeing Rick's group as the antagonists. But I'm not defending the way Negan went about his way to show force. I think he already did that with the multiple roadblocks, he could have taken a pacifist approach and finished his monologue and left with Daryl as prisoner. They still would have got the message by simply seeing how many numbers he has, let alone the resources to play cat and mouse games all day. So to conclude, we had some excellent exposition, writing, cinematography, and a very eerie Walking Dead setting that we hadn't seen for a while, as the writing team decided the cast should play house in Alexandria for a while. We had the setup and the payoff, Negan's reveal, the now iconic monologue, Rick's group put into a situation we've never seen before. We had viewing numbers the community had never seen before. This was peak Walking Dead. The world was talking about this episode because Negan killed the cameraman. And the episode ended on a 6-month cliffhanger. The world ended up talking about this episode for the wrong reasons. It did everything almost perfectly, but it came crashing down with Scott Gimple's decision to end on that cliffhanger. A side note, it probably wasn't his sole decision, but he was the showrunner at the time. Now of course, streaming has squashed all controversy surrounding this episode, but back in 2016, when we were all watching week to week, a 6-month wait is unacceptable, a cheap ploy to make us return for Season 7. Since watching Season 7's premiere, I would have played it out like this. I'm no screenwriter, producer, or director. I think that goes without saying. But the writing team must have known back then that they would be killing off 2 characters in Season 7. So why didn't they just show Abraham getting the first strike, then ending? That would have been a big shock to the fanbase. He was a well-liked and respected character, and we also had all the setup of the closure of his character arc. We had a few foreshadowing moments throughout this episode. Yes, comic fans would have been angry that it wasn't Glenn, but then the team could have rewarded them in Season 7's premiere by then killing off Glenn with the second strike. Then in turn, that would have shocked the TV audience. To this day, this is probably one of the most controversial Walking Dead episodes to date, and the viewing numbers reflected that. It truly never recovered from this. So that's my thoughts and rundown on Season 6's finale, in my opinion, where The Walking Dead peaked and declined in the same episode. Let me know your thoughts, as always, and thank you for watching.